Hey, hey, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Sporting Nation Hangout. I am your host, Sunny Cadwallader, also known as Cad Chica on Twitter. Yes, we made it. We actually made it to episode number 2. I am joined here today by my cohort, my amigo, my editor, Jose Romero. Jose, say hello.
Hi, Sonny. Glad to be here.
All right, we actually made it, and before we bring on our guest, a very special guest, I have to admit I was wrong just a little bit. If you joined our first hangout, Jose and I were talking about the Super Bowl. It was right before the Super Bowl between the Seahawks and Broncos, and Jose went for the Seahawks, and I went for the Broncos. I even said the Broncos by 10. Mea culpa. I was wrong, Jose. You were right.
Well, I mean, I don't think anybody could have foreseen the blowout. They just throttled them from the very beginning. It was really strange to watch. I mean, I lived in Seattle for 11 plus years, and I guess I never thought that the city would actually get a championship. It's just kind of so hard to imagine, and for me anyway. And when it finally happened, I was just sitting there on my couch, thinking they're going to have a parade, and they're going to celebrate a championship, and there's going to be a banner in CenturyLink Field. And that's just still kind of a foreign thought for me, I guess. But hey, give them credit. They played their butts off, and I mean, it was quite a show by them.
Well, that's the last time I'm going to be wrong, or the last time I will admit it. So there we go. We've got that out of the way. I'm going to toss it to you, Jose, and you can bring on our guest, and let's talk some baseball.
Hey, well, last time we did this, we didn't have a guest, so we're moving up in the world. We're getting a guest, and our special guest today is a guy I met in my Seattle days. I'm reaching back into the past to bring some guys back out here. And this is, I'd like to introduce my friend Anthony Salazar. He's from the Latino Baseball Committee of the Society for American Baseball Research.
Hey, thanks a lot, Jose and Sunny, for having me on. What do you want to talk about? Let's hang out here.
Well, Anthony, let's just start with tell the people out there people you say you hear the words Latino Baseball Committee.
Right.
And the title, and just talk about what you do and what's the process, what's involved.
Sure, absolutely. Let's see. So the organization I'm representing, it's the Society for American Baseball Research, SABR.org. We have over 5, 6, 7, 8,000 members actually across the world. We actually have a number of chapters nationwide. Essentially, the deal is we've got over 25, 26 different research committees, so whatever your interest is in baseball, whether it's Latinos, women, umpires, statistical analysis, we've got a place for you at SABR, SABR.org. I happen to be the chair. This is my second tour as being the chair of the Latino Committee. We also have a publication that I edit. It's called La Prensa del Baseball Latino. And so I'm going to resurrect that thing up here pretty soon. So I'm a Latino baseball historian, so my background's in social and American urban history. But growing up in East LA, we had a nice little view of Dodger Stadium before I moved to San Francisco, where I went to a lot of Giants games and A's games. And trying being a Dodgers fan in San Francisco, it's a pretty tough deal, let me tell you. So I still haven't lived down the 1977 and 1978 World Series. But I grew up to be an historian, and it was one of those things where I just enjoyed seeing people that looked like me. I enjoyed seeing people that sounded like me, and I really developed honed an interest in that particular area. So it's a nice little niche market where I'm able to, one, talk about the Latinos in baseball, and two, also really look at how Major League Baseball teams and minor league baseballs, for that matter, are marketing baseball to the to the Latino community, and how they're leveraging their Latino players to the Latino community. So it's been real interesting to track that phenomena for, let's say, the past 20 some odd years. and also look at the number of Latino ball players that have come through the major league ranks. Right now, I haven't seen the latest data. I guess we won't see that for another month or so. But the last few years, it's been trending upward quite a bit, where we're seeing about a third of all major league ball players are Latino. And in the minor league ranks, it's almost half. So you're seeing a lot of traction there, and you're also seeing a lot of different ways in which Major League Baseball is, I don't want to say not catering in a pejorative sort of way, but more or less, trying to find ways to work better with their Latino ball players. You're talking about the academies. You're talking about the types of things that is making it a little more comfortable for Latino ball players once they hit the major leagues. So in a sense, that's kind of what I do and a lot of things that I focus on. I've written a lot of different articles and chapters in books. I just had a chapter in a book come out on Latinos and popular culture, and it was on the Latino experience in Major League Baseball. So it's it's a pretty good deal, and I really enjoy what I do, and it's one of those things that I enjoy the people that I work with. I'm not a Dominican expert, but I know the Dominican expert. I'm not the Cuban expert, but I know the Cuban expert. So I know, as a generalist, if you will, I know where to reach out to. And it was really funny. A friend of mine in London has a friend who had a question about Dominican ball players of Haitian descent, and so she asked me, and I was able to reach out to a friend of mine in New York City, and so he gave me a couple of names, so I was able to reach out and to my friend in London with those two names. So it's the internet makes things the world much more smaller, and the people in it having such a great birth of knowledge that I'm able to share, and essentially that's what knowledge is. You want to share that knowledge.
Anthony, I want to ask you, let's just dive right into it, I guess. Is it kind of amazing to you at this point that, I mean, amazing is not the right word, but the two faces of the local team for you up there, the Seattle Mariners, are a Dominican and a Venezuelan. You get Felix Hernandez and Robinson Cano. I mean, who would have ever thought, right? I mean,
Right.
I guess that's where the game is, and you talked about the demographics of the numbers of Latinos in the game. They've been there for years, obviously, but I mean, we're talking about Seattle in the Pacific Northwest, where it's not a Latino high population area, and you've got these two guys who are basically the faces of the team. Is that how do you perceive that is going to go like in Seattle this year?
Well, first of all, you have one. Cano is still an unknown commodity, so we don't know what he's going to be bringing to the table. I mean, he hasn't met the fan base in whole, so I think we'll have a better judge of what he brings to the table probably around April, May. Felix, I've been really pleasantly surprised with Felix, mainly because back in the day when you had Freddie Garcia up here, he was known as kind of a party guy, and it was one of those things where you were just afraid that you didn't want that kind of influence. I mean, again, I don't mean that in a pejorative way, but the party influence to rub off on Felix. And Felix, you know what? He's a family guy now. He's married, he's got a kid, he's got a home, and he's making a career here. And people here have embraced him. When you go to Safeco Field in that right field area, you see the King's Court, just bright with yellow, with all celebrating Felix Hernandez. So the Seattle Mariner fan base have really truly embraced him and what he brings to the table. Again, Cano, kind of an unknown entity. Now, with respect to the Latino ball players and the Seattle Mariners, well, it kind of goes back about, let's see, what is this, 2014, about maybe less than 15 years ago, where the Mariners actually started a program that they were catering to they were able to leverage the Latino ball player popularity with the fan base by creating these Salute to Latino Baseball promotions. Usually happen in around Mexican Independence Day, or 16 de Septiembre. So you're seeing a lot of that happen in clubs nationwide. But with the Mariners, it's really cool because it's not a heavy Latino population. It's growing a little bit over the past, let's say, 20 years. But and even, let's talk about how they further promote it with Spanish language websites. They have Spanish language broadcasts. So again, you're just reaching out to the Latino community and bringing in that buying power.
They just opened a didn't they just open a new academy
The
down
academy.
there?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the other thing. You know, the Mariners are one of the only teams that have academies in Venezuela and the Dominican Republic. The Astros, who were really at the vanguards in Venezuela, have moved. Let's see, what have they done? I want to say that they have they're tapering off their operations in Venezuela. Um, but you know the vanguards, the pioneers of that, of course, were the Dodgers back in 1987. Getting back to the Mariners, it's been great to see the fans embrace the Latino ball players, and it's been really cool to watch that and be a part of that. And I think Edgar Martinez, for example, had a lot to do with that.
Yep.
Raul Ibanez had
Yep.
a lot to do with that. So it's become mainstream. So I think it's pretty cool.
There's just so many teams now that you know the number of teams now, the face of their team is a Latino player, and in some cases, a guy whose English might not be all that great. And I guess I'm always amazed. I was asked to try to speak with I covered the Milwaukee Brewers camp the other day,
Right.
and the writer for MLB.com who I was working for suggested that I try and speak with Elian Herrera, who's from the Dominican Republic,
Mm-hmm.
and he basically wrote in his email to me. He said, if you speak Spanish, you know, nobody's ever talked to this guy because we don't speak the language. So, you know, if you speak Spanish, this would be a great opportunity for you to, you know, kind of introduce the Brewers fans to Elian Herrera. And I'm a freelance guy. You know, I'm not even a beat guy. So I guess my point is not, you know, about journalism and how there still is a lack of Spanish-speaking baseball journalists out there. But I guess it's just interesting to see that so many teams, you know, have prominent Latino players, and yet, you know, those guys don't really, their stories really don't get told.
Right, absolutely. And you know what? It has a whole lot of history there. I remember someone telling me a story about Bert Campaneris. So this is like 1977. Has a great day at the field, and there are no reporters talking to him because they can't speak Spanish. And so he goes, takes a shower, goes home, has a couple of beers, and relaxes. But the story could have been about him had those reporters spoken Spanish. And these days, let's fast forward to 2014. And how many Latinos do you see that are beat reporters? What? Not.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a pretty small number. Baseball still has a problem with that. Matter of fact, the Mariners just hired a new beat guy, and he's actually coming from the Tacoma News-Tribune. And I don't know what his Spanish-speaking skills are like, but I recall just writing a letter to the sports editor saying, whoever you hire should have some Spanish-speaking skills. So I haven't chatted with this guy, the new beat guy. So I'm hoping he's got some skills.
Came from the Royals, I think. He came from the Kansas City Royals, didn't he? I think.
Yeah.
Ryan, what's his name?
I don't remember his name, but I remember seeing it coming from the Royals. He'd covered the Royals before.
Right. But regardless, we're still talking about a third of all Major League Baseball players who are Latino descent, and if you can't communicate with them, then you've got a problem, and you are missing that story. So it kind of falls under that category of opportunities lost.
So then, I guess how much of what you do is, in part, even a small part, trying to, educate the fan base, about these guys. And, I guess we've come a long way since Roberto Clemente kept being called Bob by the writers.
Right.
But,
and
then he corrected him. And I guess is there a small part of what you do then to educate the masses out there and put a name to a face and let these people kind of identify with or try to find some sort of common ground with these guys?
Yeah.
Well, and that's a good question, and the circles that I run are kind of going back to that word niche. I work with a lot of regular baseball historians, and so if I get them to develop that appreciation for Latino baseball history, then they're going to take that knowledge with them. If they're teachers or administrators or librarians or whoever they might be, they're going to take a little bit of that knowledge base with them, and so it spreads. They might be able to take it back to their kids or to their communities to really tell the stories that I'm telling. So, for example, I did a presentation on the Latino baseball impact of the Dodgers, 1958 to 2011. This summer, I'll be doing a presentation on the Houston Astros and their Latino impact. So, and in the audience, you have these baseball historians. So they're going to take a little bit back with them to their communities, give them a little bit more to think about when they are talking about black baseball history or statistical analysis or whatever, but a little at a time they're going to take back. So, and then again, the work that you see done by others in Major League Baseball when they are presenting Hispanic, Latino-oriented promotions, I think that really goes a long way as well. What I'd like to see is a Latino version of This Week in Baseball. I think that would be pretty cool. You've had a few specials here and there produced by MLB, and there are a couple of documentarians out there that are working on some efforts, but to make it a little bit more mainstream, especially when you see people like Fox that actually have big contracts with MLB. They've got Fox in Espanol. They could be doing something a little bit more tangible and to spread to the mainstream audiences. So I think it'll grow at some point in leaps and bounds. I think they just have to see the Latino buying power a little bit more.
Definitely.
I know your time's coming up here, but talk about you're a guy who's in the academia world as well, Anthony. Talk about just kind of how you intertwine, or if you do, if you're able to do that, intertwine the baseball stuff that you do with what you do in the world of education.
Well, I'm a recruiter for the University of Washington Graduate School, and so, it's really cool because I get to work with a lot of kids, not kids, I keep calling them kids, they're, 20-something, a lot of interesting students who are doing some really top-notch research. I mean, these are students who are interested in finding cures for cancer, solving world peace, that kind of thing, whether they're in molecular, cellular biology, philosophy, comparative literature. They're all coming here to, study, and the demographics I work with are underrepresented, and me as a former grad student, being a Chicano descent, I'm able to bring that knowledge and that pain, if you will, along with me, where I can, get up and stand. Well, my research focuses on the Latino experience in baseball, and be able to, stand with them as they talk about their research interests. So, and it is also something else that I get to chat with my Latino coworkers as well across the campus, and I've actually presented to this group, our Latino Faculty Staff Association, my work on Latinos in baseball, and also bringing, little bobbleheads and baseball cards and things like that to, help illustrate a point. Every couple of years, I'm able to do a research gig, or as I should say, a lecture gig at Seattle Pacific University. As a colleague of mine is a professor of history there, and he teaches a freshman class on baseball. So every 2 years, I'm able to go and talk with those students about Latins in baseball.
Just down to a couple minutes left, Jose.
How big, Anthony, was Fernando Mania back in the day in East LA?
Sure. So we're talking just huge. First of all, this is like, picture, if you will, this really chubby kid coming up, from Mexico to play for the Dodgers in the Texas League, and so he meets a guy named
Mike Guido?
No, Bobby
Castillo.
Castillo, yes, thank you. So he met Bobby Castillo, and he was the cat that taught him how to throw that screwball. So once Fernando, masters that screwball, he's able to burst onto the scene in late 1980, but mostly he gets the pitch opening day in 1981 for the Dodgers, and he goes on to win something like 12 straight games. Fernando Mania is born, and it's huge. For the Latinos in East LA, it's just phenomenal. And this is also at the time where United States is having some difficulties with Mexico, and so Fernando is able to sort of bridge that gap, baseball diplomacy, if you will. And so he's able to bring a lot of brown butts into Dodger Stadium, and then of course the Dodgers love seeing that. Every time Fernando's going to pitch, that's going to be a sellout. So they're guaranteed a lot of revenue every 4 or 5 days, and so it just went on for a number of years. So it was just really great to see, and it was very pride-worthy. You see a lot of pride in the Latino community in East LA. So it was just really a phenomenon, and I think it's so right that we do call that Fernando Mania.
Well, Anthony, our time is just about up. We thank you for your patience. We thank you for appearing on our show today. Why don't you let people know where they can find you, where they can connect with you, follow you along on social media, or just where they can find some of your work on the web?
Okay, well, you know what? I'm still developing that right now with our Sabre Latino Baseball Committee. I'm hoping it's going to be something like saberlatino at .org. So I'm still working with our developers to get that, but you know, I'd love to connect with those of you that are interested in looking at Latins in baseball, Latinos in baseball. So thank you very much for having me. I really appreciated the time and to meet you and reconnect with Jose. So glad to see you're doing well. And just to echo on your earlier theme, the Seahawk pride in Seattle still swells, so it's just amazing,
It's all
absolutely
across
amazing.
the state. All
Yeah,
across the state.
just
I'm on the eastern side, so it's all across the state.
it was just amazing, absolutely amazing.
Well, thank you, Anthony, and Jose. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Follow,
Anthony.
Hey, it's
follow. Be sure to follow us at Sporting Nation 1 or find us on the web and see the latest stories in the Latino community in sports at thesportingnation.com. Thank you for joining us, and we will definitely have número 3 episode probably sometime next month, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.